As expected, the Fed held its target rate steady at 3.5 and 3.75% for the second consecutive meeting. Additionally, they updated their summary of economic projections, aka the dot plot, which indicated that the median member would expect no more than one cut throughout 2026. This was widely expected. The Fed had said leading up to the minute that they were worried about the downside risks of employment, but that had stabilized. However, they were seeing upside risk to inflation via the tariffs. So again, nothing unexpected. They're comfortable keeping the rate here. Powell did mention the war in Iran throughout the course of his press conference, but he did say there was tremendous uncertainty and the outcomes were far from known, so he didn't want to speculate on its impact on the economy at this point. There was one dissent. Stephen Myron dissented again, was no surprise. He advocated for lower rates, but again, Fed is totally comfortable with 3.5 to 3.75% at this time. What strikes me the most is how much more of a balancing act this is going to be over the next couple months for the Fed. Coming into the meeting, they told you they've been balancing the downside risks of job growth, slow to no growth, as well as the upside risk to inflation via the tariffs. Now you have to throw in the war. The first impulse of the war was higher rates. It was inflationary. We've seen it via an energy shock, potentially higher food prices, input prices. But what the Fed's really going to have to grapple with is, at what point, how long does this last before this goes from inflationary to recessionary? And Powell, he admitted they're modeling out the scenarios. He did actually say that they looked at potential for a rate hike. Now, they had that same conversation in the last meeting. It's not their baseline, but they're just trying to model out all these different scenarios because of growth and inflation and now the war, and really trying to balance, okay, right now we're dealing with inflation, but do we really have to worry about recession coming down the pike? We've been advocating being active, flexible, and diversified in fixed income, and we don't think the story's changed there. Despite a relatively benign Fed meeting, obviously there's a tremendous amount of uncertainty that exists in the world. Like I said, the first impulse of the war was to be inflationary, higher rates, energy shock, but we are really concerned about the recessionary aspects the longer this goes. You have a new Fed chair coming in who's been advocating and pounding the table for lower rates, but that might not be a possibility. Throw in this kind of monkey wrench that Powell stated during his conference. He hasn't made a decision on if he's going to step down once he still has a term left to fill out, just not as Fed chair, and he's not made a decision. And that could be problematic for the new Fed chair because he has tremendous amount of influence. So rates are moving, but they're not moving uniformly, like we've said. On the credit side of things, we acknowledge that spreads were tight at the beginning of the year, but they have widened some. Part of that is the war in Iran. Part of that is the cracks in private credit. Part of that is just the massive amount of supply that's hit the tape since the beginning of the year. Now, we've seen rates back up since the war started, and we've seen spreads widen. So all-in yields are not significantly higher, but decently higher than they were at the beginning of the year, which could create an attractive entry point for someone in fixed income. So for those reasons, this is why we've advocated for flexible, active, and diversified in fixed income, and we still think that's the case today.